You just turned 30. Maybe you got a decent job. Maybe you've been working for almost a decade. You've got some money in the bank, or at least you think you do until you check your savings account and realize it's basically empty. You look around at your friends and they seem fine. They've got apartments, they've got relationships, some of them even have kids. Everyone's pretending everything is normal, but there's this nagging feeling in your chest that something's off. My name is Lenny, and I spent my 20s doing everything wrong and my 30s finally understanding why. And I'm here to tell you something that nobody wants to hear because it's uncomfortable and it requires action. Your 30s aren't the new 20s. They're not a time to figure things out. They're not an extension of your exploration phase. Your 30s are the single most important decade of your financial life, and most people waste it completely. Here's the problem. When you're in your 20s, you have the most valuable asset you'll ever possess, and you don't even know it. You have time, you have literally decades ahead of you, but you treat it like you've got forever. You think you'll start saving when you make more money. You think you'll start investing when you feel more stable. You think you'll get serious about your future when you're 30. Well, congratulations, you're 30 now, and if you haven't started, you're already behind. The mathematics of your 30s are absolutely brutal, and once you understand them, you'll never be able to unsee them. Let me show you exactly what I mean. If you start investing $500 a month at age 30 and stick with it until you're 65, assuming an average 7% annual return, you'll have approximately $1.2 million. That sounds great, right? It is great. Except here's the part that makes you want to scream. If you had started that same $500 a month at age 20, you'd have $2.4 million. You literally doubled your money by starting just one decade earlier. Let that sink in for a moment. 10 years of investing an extra $500 a month gives you the same amount of money as 35 years of investing. That's not motivational. That's terrifying. That's the universe telling you that you're running out of time, and most people in their 30s are completely oblivious to it. Your 20s were the warm-up. Your 30s are when the game actually starts, and most people don't even realize they're playing. They're still living like they're 25, spending money like it grows on trees, making decisions like they've got another decade to fix their mistakes. But here's what separates people who become wealthy from people who just survive. People who become wealthy understand that your 30s are the hinge point of your entire financial life. The decisions you make right now, the habits you build in the next few years, will determine whether you're rich at 50 or still stressed about money. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. You don't become a millionaire because you make a lot of money. You become a millionaire because of what you do with the money you have right now. And right now in your 30s is the last moment you have when compound interest is actually working in your favor. The number one mistake I see people make in their 30s is thinking they still have time. They think their 30s are basically the same as their 20s, just with a little more money and a little more responsibility. They tell themselves they'll get serious about money in their 40s. But here's the truth that keeps me up at night. If you don't build wealth in your 30s, you're not going to build it in your 40s. You're not going to suddenly become disciplined. You're not going to suddenly prioritize your future. The habits you have right now are the habits you'll have at 40, 50, and 60. If they're bad habits, they'll only get worse. I spent most of my 20s completely clueless about money. I made decent money, but I had no idea where it went. I was one of those people who got paid on Friday and had about $80 left by Wednesday. I told myself I'd get it together eventually. Then I turned 30, and something clicked. I realized that everyone I knew who had built any real wealth started in their 30s. Not their 20s, not their 40s, their 30s. Because that's when you have just enough income to make a difference, and just enough time for that difference to compound into something meaningful. But the clock is ticking. Every month that goes by in your 30s without you taking action is a month of compound interest you'll never get back. It's literally impossible to recover from a lost year at compound interest. You can only move forward. So let me ask you a hard question. What's your number? And I don't mean your salary. I mean the total amount of money you have right now in investments and savings that's actually working for you, not your retirement account at work, not the equity in your house, the actual cash or investments you've accumulated. Most people in their 30s either have a dangerously small number or they have no idea what their number is. They have this vague sense that they have some money somewhere, but they couldn't tell you the exact amount if their life depended on it. Here's what you need to understand. Your number in your 30s determines your entire future. Not your salary, not your job title, not your degree, your number. The actual cash and investments you've accumulated. Because your number is what generates passive income. Your number is what gives you options. Your number is what eventually lets you stop working if you want to. Your number is everything. Most people get this completely backwards. They focus on their salary. They think if they just make more money, everything will work out. But making more money doesn't matter if you don't keep any of it. I've met people in their 30s making six figures who are completely broke. I've met people making $40,000 a year who have more wealth than people making $200,000. The difference isn't their income. The difference is their number. Here's what happened in my 30s. I got serious about tracking my money. Not in a fun way, in a ruthless, obsessive, slightly unhealthy way. I tracked every single dollar, every coffee, every meal, every subscription, every purchase. It was brutal. I realized I was spending money on things I didn't even remember buying. I was completely unconscious about my spending habits. I was like someone who's overweight, never steps on a scale, and then acts shocked that they gained 50 pounds. Once I finally looked at my actual spending, I could actually do something about it. And here's what I discovered. I was spending about $800 a month on things that added zero value to my life. Subscriptions I forgot about, meals I could have cooked at home, random purchases I didn't even remember making. $800 a month, that's $9,600 a year. Over 10 years, that's almost $100,000. And that was just the stuff I didn't even remember buying. Imagine if I'd been intentional about that money. This is the wake-up call your 30s are supposed to give you. This is when you realize that small decisions have massive consequences, that the coffee you buy every day adds up to thousands of dollars a year, that the subscription services you forgot about are literally stealing from your future. But most people get that wake-up call and completely ignore it. They think it's too late to change. They think they're too far behind. They think one person can't make a difference, so they just keep doing what they've always done and keep getting what they've always gotten. I want to tell you something different. It's not too late. You're not too far behind. And the decisions you make right now will absolutely determine whether you're rich in your 40s or still stressed about money. Here's the path that actually works. It's not complicated. It's not sexy. It won't make you rich overnight, but it will make you rich eventually. And eventually, combined with your age, is absolutely powerful. The first thing you need to do is get brutally honest about where you actually are financially. Not where you think you are, not where you wish you were, where you actually are right now in this moment. Add up all your debts, credit cards, car payments, student loans, everything. Write down the exact number. Then add up all your savings and investments. Write down that number too. Calculate your net worth. That number is your starting point. For most people in their 30s, this is the most uncomfortable moment, because that number is usually much smaller than they want to admit. People have told me they have negative net worth. They have student loans and credit card debt that exceeds everything they own. But here's the thing, that number doesn't judge you. That number doesn't care about your past mistakes. That number is just information. And once you have information, you can actually make decisions. Your net worth in your 30s is not a judgment of your character. It's a reflection of your past decisions. And your net worth when you're 40, 50, and 60 will be a reflection of the decisions you make right now. That's actually good news because it means you have control. Now here's where most people make their second mistake. They see that uncomfortable number and they get paralyzed. They think the gap is too big. They think they'll never catch up. They think they should have started earlier, so why bother starting now? But that's exactly backwards. The bigger the gap between where you are and where you want to be, the more urgent the action becomes. You don't have time to be lazy. You don't have time to be slow. You have to get serious right now. The second thing you need to do is understand the principle of aggressive allocation. In your 30s, you need to be ruthless about cutting expenses and aggressive about building wealth. This is not the time to maintain your lifestyle. This is the time to sacrifice. I know that sounds harsh. I know you want to enjoy your life, but here's the math. If you're 30 years old and you're not building wealth aggressively, you're sacrificing your entire future so you can be comfortable right now. I'm not saying you need to live like a broke college student. I'm saying you need to be strategic. You need to separate your needs from your wants and be willing to cut your wants down to almost nothing. Your goal in your 30s should be to save at least 30% of your gross income, not 30% of what's left after bills, 30% of your total income before taxes. That means you need to cut your lifestyle so aggressively that only 70% of your money is going to actual living expenses. For most people, that's impossible at first. They look at their current lifestyle and they can't imagine cutting it that much. But here's what you need to understand. Your current lifestyle is probably destroying your future. The apartment you're paying too much for, the car you can't really afford, the restaurants and bars and entertainment and shopping habits, they're all stealing from your future self. You're trading 30 years of stress and worry for a few years of moderate comfort right now. That's not a good trade. That's a terrible trade. And in your 30s, you still have time to make a different choice. But if you don't make that choice now, you never will. Here's what actually works in your 30s. You need to get your fixed expenses down to no more than 50% of your gross income. That's housing, utilities, insurance, transportation, food, all the basic necessities. 50% maximum. That leaves you 50% of your income for everything else. Taxes will take about 20 to 30% depending on your situation. That leaves you with about 20 to 30% that's actually available for you to allocate. Of that 20 to 30%, you're going to allocate at least 15% to savings and investments. That leaves you with somewhere between 5 and 15% for discretionary spending. That's your breathing room. That's your money for entertainment and hobbies and things that make life fun. It sounds tight, and it is tight, but it's absolutely doable if you're willing to make hard choices about your lifestyle. And here's the beautiful part. Those hard choices in your 30s are what give you unlimited choices in your 40s and 50s. Most people have it completely backwards. They want unlimited choices right now, which means they'll have no choices later. I'm suggesting you give up choices now so you can have unlimited choices later. Let me show you what this actually looks like in real numbers. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Your gross income is $100,000. Taxes take about $30,000. Your take-home is $70,000 per year, or about $5,800 per month. You're going to allocate 30% of your gross income to savings and investments. That's $30,000 per year, or $2,500 per month. Before you spend a single dollar on anything else, that money goes into your savings and investment accounts. You're going to allocate 50% of your gross income to your fixed expenses. That's $50,000 per year or $4,200 per month. That covers your housing, utilities, insurance, food, transportation, and basic necessities. That leaves you with your take-home minus your taxes minus your fixed expenses. That's $700 per month. That's your discretionary spending. That's your money for entertainment, hobbies, going out, shopping, all the fun stuff. $700 per month is actually a lot of money for discretionary spending. That's more than enough to have a good time while still building serious wealth. But most people spend way more than that on discretionary items. They spend 2 or 3 times that amount and then wonder where their money went. They make 6 figures but have nothing to show for it. They're on the hedonic treadmill where they just keep increasing their spending as their income increases. But here's what happens when you lock in your fixed expenses at 50% and your discretionary spending at 15%. When you get a raise, you have a choice. You can increase your discretionary spending a little bit, or you can increase your savings and investments. Most people immediately increase their discretionary spending. They get a $5,000 raise, and suddenly their apartment needs to be nicer, or their car needs to be newer, or they need to start eating at fancier restaurants. That's called lifestyle inflation, and it's the #1 reason people with high incomes never become wealthy. They earn more, but they spend more. Their lifestyle expands to consume every dollar they earn. Their net worth goes nowhere. But if you're intentional about it, if you allocate your raise strategically, something different happens. You still increase your discretionary spending a little bit so you can enjoy your increased income, but you put most of that raise towards savings and investments. That's how you actually become wealthy. That's how you go from making 6 figures to having 7 figures in the bank. It's not rocket science, it's just discipline and intention. The third thing you need to do in your 30s is get crystal clear on your debt situation. I don't care if it's student loans or credit cards, or car payments, or a mortgage. You need to know exactly how much you owe, at what interest rate, and when you're going to be debt-free. Most people have no idea. They have a vague sense that they're in debt, but they don't know the exact numbers. They haven't done the math on how long it will take to pay it off. They haven't calculated how much interest they're actually paying. That's insane. That's like driving with your eyes closed and hoping you don't crash. You need to know exactly where you stand. You need to know the exact interest rate on every single debt you have. You need to know the order you're going to pay them off. You need to know when you're going to be debt-free. For your 30s, here's my recommendation. Stay current on all your debt payments. Make sure you're paying at least the minimum on everything. Your credit score is crucial right now because you're probably going to need to borrow money at some point, and a good credit score will save you tens of thousands of dollars. After you've locked in your 30% savings rate and your 50% fixed expenses, any money left over after your discretionary spending goes toward aggressive debt payoff. You're going to demolish your debt as fast as possible while still maintaining your savings rate. This is the delicate balance. You can't sacrifice your future savings for your past debt. That defeats the entire purpose. You need to build wealth while you're paying off debt. Both things happen at the same time. The fourth thing you need to do is get serious about your retirement accounts. If your employer offers a 401k match, you need to be contributing enough to get the full match, period, full stop, no exceptions. If your employer matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary, you need to be contributing at least 6%. That's free money. You cannot afford to leave free money on the table in your 30s. If you make $100,000 a year and you're not getting your full employer match, you're literally leaving thousands of dollars on the table every single year. Over 10 years, that's tens of thousands of dollars. Over 30 years until retirement, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. After you've gotten your full employer match, you need to be putting money into a Roth IRA or additional 401k contributions until you're hitting that 15% of gross income mark toward retirement savings. Your goal is to have $100,000 saved in retirement accounts by the time you're 35. If you're already 35, your goal is to have at least $50,000 in retirement accounts right now with a plan to get to $200,000 by 40. These numbers might sound crazy. They're not. They're completely achievable if you make the changes I'm talking about, and they're absolutely necessary if you want to retire before you're 70 years old. The fifth thing you need to do is build your emergency fund. In your 30s, you need to have at least 6 months of your essential expenses in a boring, liquid savings account. Not invested, not in crypto, boring and liquid and available. If your essential monthly expenses are $2,000, you need to have $12,000 in your emergency fund. That might sound like a lot, but it's absolutely critical because your 30s are when real adult emergencies start happening. Your car breaks down, your furnace dies, you lose your job, your health fails. Any of these things can derail your entire financial plan if you don't have a cushion, and the emergency fund is that cushion. Most people have zero emergency fund in their 30s. They're living paycheck to paycheck even though they make decent money. That's because they haven't done the math. They haven't allocated their money strategically. They're just spending everything they make. The sixth thing you need to do is start thinking about your long-term goals. Not just wealth, not just money, real goals. Do you want to own a house? Do you want to start a business? Do you want to travel? Do you want to retire early? Your 30s are when you need to start being strategic about those goals. You need to figure out what they actually cost. And when you want to achieve them, then you need to work backwards and create a plan. If you want to buy a house in 5 years and you need a down payment of $100,000, you need to save $2,000 a month. That affects your allocation. That affects your spending decisions. That affects whether you take that nice apartment or get a roommate. But most people never do this math. They just wish they could buy a house someday without actually creating a plan for it. And someday never comes. The seventh thing you need to do is understand that your 30s are when everything gets harder and you need to be stronger. You're going to have more financial obligations. You're going to have more responsibilities. You're going to have more pressure to spend money and upgrade your lifestyle. Your friends are all getting married and having kids and buying nice things. The pressure is real. And if you don't have a plan, if you're not intentional about your money, that pressure will destroy your financial future. But here's what's powerful. If you stick to your plan, if you allocate 30% to savings, 50% to expenses, and 15% to discretionary spending, you're actually going to be more comfortable than your friends who are trying to keep up with the lifestyle inflation. They're going to be stressed and anxious about money. You're going to have your emergency fund. You're going to have your retirement accounts growing. You're going to have your debt getting paid off. You're going to actually sleep at night. And in 5 or 10 years, when you're 40, you're going to look at your friends and you're going to see the difference. Some of them are going to still be making decent money, but have nothing to show for it. Others are going to be in real financial trouble, but you're going to have built real wealth. You're going to have a 6-figure net worth. You're going to have options that they don't have. That's the wake-up call your 30s need to give you. That's the urgency that should be driving your decisions right now. Your 30s are make or break. They're the difference between becoming wealthy and becoming one of those people who works until they're 70 years old and then hopes the government takes care of them in retirement. They're the difference between being empowered and being powerless. The decisions you make in the next few years will reverberate through the rest of your life. Every dollar you invest now will multiply dozens of times by the time you're 60. Every dollar you waste will cost you tens of dollars in future returns. So here's your choice. You can keep doing what you've always done and keep getting what you've always gotten. You can keep spending more than you should, keep avoiding hard financial decisions, keep telling yourself you'll get serious about money later. Or you can wake up right now. You can get honest about where you actually are financially. You can make some hard decisions about your lifestyle. You can lock in your allocation. You can start building real wealth. Your 30-year-old self can either thank your 25-year-old self for starting early or curse them for wasting time. Your 40-year-old self will either thank your 30-year-old self for making hard decisions now or resent them for wasting another decade. The choice is yours, but the time to make that choice is right now, not next month, not next year, right now, this week, today, because every day that goes by is a day of compound interest you'll never get back. Every month of waiting is money that could have been growing for you while you slept. Your 30s are the most important decade of your financial life. Don't waste them. Wake up and start building.